like I have experienced it, and there's a lot of mixed emotions around it. I think, at least for me, you kind of like don't want it to be happening because then it like becomes uncomfortable, and then it just like changes the whole atmosphere. And I'm sure a lot of women experience it in the day, and I think what I find to be like very sad, or just when that boundary is crossed between like when it's a trustful work environment, you're going in there, you're working with coworkers, or you're just there to do your job, and then it takes a turn, and then you're like, this is not what I signed up for when I came to work today.
Welcome back to the Ethics Guild. Again, with my partners in crime, Kevin and Autumn. And obviously with our best friend here, these delicious empanadas from Made in New Jersey restaurant. Come and visit us. We are located in 614 Elizabeth Avenue, Elizabeth, New Jersey. The owner, Genevieve and Brown, let us hang out here on Wednesdays. And this is actually has become our hangout place, right? And this is the reason why we shoot at the restaurant, because as we hang out, we obviously eat pretty well. But at the same time, we have fun here, talking about different topics about leadership, labor. And today's topic, it's a very hot one. Today's topic is about harassment. Woo, let's go. Harassment, right? Who hasn't been harassed at work? And obviously, harassment normally leads to discrimination and biases and favoritism and favors. It leads to so many things, but we want to focus on three main things today. We want to focus on sexual harassment. We want to focus on age harassment and discrimination, and also religious harassment and discrimination, right? I actually want to start this with Autumn. And the reason being is because, nothing against us, Kev, but the reason why I want to start, because I believe women probably get sexually harassed the most. And how many times do they stay quiet? So, my question is to Autumn, is like, Autumn, have you ever been in a situation where you felt sexually harassed, and how did that look like?
Oh my goodness, what a way to open up the floor, am I right? I don't know, when I hear the word harassment, my stomach drops a little bit. I'm like, should we talk about this today? Is there another topic? So I will say, like, I have experienced it, and there's a lot of mixed emotions around it. I think, at least for me, you kind of like don't want it to be happening because then it like becomes uncomfortable, and then it just like changes the whole atmosphere. And I'm sure a lot of women experience it in the day. And I think what I find to be like very sad, or just when that boundary is crossed between like when it's a trustful work environment, you're going in there, you're working with coworkers, or you're just there to do your job, and then it takes a turn, and then you're like, this is not what I signed up for when I came to work today. But yeah, it's uncomfortable, and talking about it makes me uncomfortable too,
I can imagine, like, like one of the things that I think of, it's like, what brings more pressure from a female perspective? Like the boss that is checking on you on your body or your looks, or the peer that is looking at that, or probably what about like same gender also checking you out? Like, what you think from your experience, what has been the most uncomfortable?
I will say, I think every woman is different, right? So every woman's personality is different, and my strong women out there, there are women out there who do not stand for it and shut it down immediately. And then there are other women out there where it's a little harder to like, when you're watching it unfold, it's kind of harder to like stop it. And for whatever reason, if you have a problem with confrontation, or you have a problem like vocalizing, hey, there's an issue here, for whatever reason, Like I've witnessed strong women who I like love and they just shut it down and they like call them out and hold them to accountability. But then even that sometimes becomes a banter and people like that. And then you have women who, like I said, it's hard to just dive into that, acknowledge it. And I love that you mentioned too, like the same gender, like there could be harassment in that field too. It's not as like intense, I think, as the opposite sex, but it could be there too. And I think at least from what I've witnessed, it could be downplayed, it could be like joked around about. But nevertheless, you still are going in there with like an armor on, like this is what's happening today, and it's very uncomfortable, and you kind of like wait for the situation or encounter to be over. Um, yeah.
What are your thoughts, Kevs? You have any questions?
Um, like, yeah, like what happens when it is that boss, or is that peer that's looking more than just a relationship at work? You know, like how does that? How do you handle that? And then is there like do you go talk to the leads about that, and then do you try to get into a different spot, or do they tell you just to keep going with the job? Like how does that get handled?
Yeah. I will say, like, leads have stepped in and like really diffused situations. Um, like I don't know about you guys, but if you ever sat through training seminars and they make you flip through the like human resources thing, and then what do you do when harassment happens? And you just kind of like click through it because it's like, oh, okay, and like I would respond in this way and that way, and like I'm kind of like, yeah, but that'll never happen. So I'm clicking through, and then this one day you're at the job and like you're having a conversation, and then it takes a turn, and you're like, okay, wait, well, would I do option C now? Because like now it's a real scenario. Um, but I think from my perspective, like whenever the leads did get involved, they were awesome about it, and they didn't tolerate it. Um, and some of the harassment that I've witnessed has come from other leads. So watching like their own like management styles have to like call each other out or correct each other like has been wonderful in what I've witnessed in the job sphere. I don't know about you guys, what you guys have witnessed, but I will say they did step in and correct situations, which was great.
I think I've seen on both sides. Like for example, uh, where as a leader you have to step in, and that kind of behavior shouldn't be tolerated, and you definitely have to do something about it, because then it brings it breaks the trust that somebody can have for their leaders and the environment, right? But I also seen the other side where, for example, a leader will make a decision without going on both, investigating both parties, right? Because you might have a perception that somebody's checking on you, right? And that's making you feel uncomfortable. But the other side of the story, as important as the other side, right? I'm not justifying, but before you make a decision, you should investigate. And I'll give you an example, right? Probably like 4 months ago, right? There was this young lady that was saying that this young man was asking her out and all this stuff. So immediately, the upper leader in this place immediately took turns, because she happened to be of that same gender, right? And she took so there was repercussions without even investigating the other side. Now this guy was upset, because I remember passing by and I saw him. I didn't know what was happening. It's like, hey, are you okay? It's like I don't play that stuff. I would never do something like that, and what I'm being accused of is unfair. Already for him the environment was bad, and for that other person was bad, right? At the end, after a week, that same person that spoke to that young lady that was according to her harassed, he spoke to him, and again, this guy never represented that kind of behavior, right? And then she took turns towards him, but it was like, oh no, I believe him. He didn't do it, but it was too late. The guy ended up quitting in 2-3 weeks because he felt that people look at him differently, right? And it's true what you say. I don't think it's a matter of perception too, right? What happens, for example, if somebody likes you at work, but they're not harassing, they're just admiring that you are pretty for them. Like how do you take that? Right? That will be my lead up question to you on, because trust me, girls don't come to guys most of the times like, damn, you're hot, Kevin. Yeah, I want to go. No, yeah. Obviously, that doesn't happen often, right? But I can imagine for women, a guy, again, think about where you spend most of your time is where you're going to find a partner. School, work, right? You're not, you're not 24/7 at a bar, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how do you deal with somebody that has the intention, that just likes you and admires your beauty but doesn't do anything, but it might make you feel, I guess, uncomfortable?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that in 1 minute. You brought up a great point before, which I think is what hinders a lot of people from wanting to run to HR and tell them, like, hey, I'm experiencing this. It ends up leaking throughout the entire office or work environment that you're in, and you come in under the notion that this is all private. They're not going to find out what we're asking you. We're going to keep it under wraps. And then I've been in situations where the entire place knows the next day, and then it becomes like,
It's true.
coworkers take sides. They're like, why would you say anything? They were just joking around, and it becomes very uncomfortable. So I actually wanted to ask you guys, how would you handle that? Like, do you think people should go to HR when they're experiencing these moments of harassment? And like, how can HR kind of like confront this without having to, like, because they do have to correct the person, the individual. I don't want to say reprimand, but reprimand the person. But like, how can they confront them without saying like, hey, we witnessed XYZ take place, like, just so that they kind of like have your trust? What's your take on that, guys?
I think one of the things that could help is like creating the borders around what is harassment, right? Like, what is considered being harassed or harassing, right? Like somebody who's saying like, "Hey, your hair looks nice today." Like somebody might take that as harassment, while you're just like saying your hair looks nice. Like that's not harassment, right? I think it's when a person steps over a certain line of it, and then if there's not like a consensus, like like you can't build relationships at jobs and the place where you hang out, like in school and work, right? But then those are built like on consensuses, like of respect, saying like, if you want to go to a certain place together, let's get lunch together or something like that. And then that it's like it's building layers for building a relationship inside of the job. But if somebody just tries to, like, obvious harassment is like big no-nos, like trying to have a one night stand with a coworker, like that's a big no-no. And then that calls out for corrective action. And because it's like a big thing right there. It wasn't even like a no, like it wasn't even like dates, like dating, so like I think finding out the borders of what is harassment, because commenting on the hair, that's not harassment, versus saying like you have a big booty, that's like that's harassment right there.
I can imagine a coworker that's like, you got a gigantic booty.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, that's not even like, I've heard like worse things. It's not like
that's like super nice, right? Like, oh, you're
that's
so
so nice.
you're so cute.
Compared to like, oh my gosh, I've had like really not good things said.
It's funny because I think the first thing you should do is de-escalate the situation, especially if there's gossip. And it's punishable for not only for the harassment, but the gossip itself and the gossipers. Because what happens is you're creating a very toxic environment against something you have no idea what happened. It's just the perception of one, and the comment of the other, right? And at the end, like you said, people take sides and they start discriminating against these individuals without them, nobody asking them to be a judge, right? So the first thing I would do is correct all that gossip, everyone involved with it. Sit down. You understand the professional etiquette of the work and how important it is to not discriminate against a peer, and then work all that stuff. But like you said, it gets leaked. The reason why it gets leaked because unfortunately, there's a lot of leaders that don't have integrity or good professional etiquette where they keep this to themselves. I'll give you a good example. All right. During work, and this is sad because also it has to do with your position. Because if you're just the guy that works in the stockroom that harass any person, that person gets slammed very quickly. But if you're like a store leader, you are an executive, and let's say you're just that person in the lower tier, right? You know there's going to be some sort of repercussions, right? You know there's going to be some sort of retaliation, right? And the weight of that, the word of that executive is going to be heavier than yours, right? Unless you have very strong evidence to support it. But normally it's word on word, right? Word against word. And I can tell you, because like, for example, the place that I work, the person in charge of the store was dating, and this guy's like about my age, and dating, and again, nothing wrong with dating somebody or having a relationship with somebody that's like 22, right? Cool. But it was so obvious, right? It was so obvious. Like this person looked at her like he was about to like devour her right in there. So like and to me that spoke more volume than like, and then the whole place knew that was happening. This person showed comments on messages about what they did, and then this person, being, I guess, trying to be clever, talked to his boss and said, there's rumors of this. All right, first place, why would you even feed a rumor if it's just a rumor? So, let's say like somebody says that they feel that this person is taking more favoritism towards the person that he's with. All you have to do is, let's say you go to court, the court could examine your text messages. No, even if you delete them, they're still encrypted, they're still there, right? But people don't have the bravery to speak up to those above them, because again, they can definitely retaliate. They look at you differently, right? They make you feel differently, right? They also they say that you're a snitch, right? And that makes you feel like you're not part of a group. So there's a lot of like things that come with harassment.
Sorry, I think harassment comes from the leaders. It comes from like the people on your level, your coworkers. And then just circling back to what you asked me before, I think, and you, Kevin, like there is the line for harassment. And like harassment can happen in any situation for any reason. And like, it's not your fault. Because like I noticed people who are very like outgoing or just like, okay, I'll just say this, it's controversial. I think people who do not have respect for women, it just shows and it comes across. I think also people who maybe like don't know really how to have a conversation with a woman, and then you show like a little bit of like camaraderie and that gets taken in the wrong way. I think because just like having like, hey, how's your day going today? That's nice, you know. But then there are always those comments, like you said about the booty comment, but like they come from like left field, and then that's when you feel uncomfortable. You start to feel stifled, and work becomes very isolating because you don't want to. At least in my opinion, like I stopped wanting to like talk to anybody in my workplace. I didn't want to like associate with anyone because it becomes very isolating. And it's just not, yeah, it's not a good environment after a while. And then it ruins your day. You know, you're there to do the job, you're there to like make your living, and then it just becomes this like circus. And it's happening like inside of you. It's not even like, you know, you don't want to draw attention to it, so it's just like you're the only one aware of it. But
You're internalizing
you're
it.
internalizing
Right?
it, yeah.
I do have a question since you mentioned that. If a guy just asks you out, would you consider that harassment? Like he's just like, hey, Autumn, I think you're a very nice person, and our conversations have been great here. It, you know, would you like to grab lunch, or would you like to go out for dinner one day? Is that considered harassment?
No, I don't think that's harassment. I think that's someone shooting his shot.
Because I can tell you one thing, I'm telling you from a male perspective, and guys are very scared of saying anything at this point. I'm not defending guys because there's some piece of crap guys out there, all
I
right?
was gonna say one though, like that's just someone shooting his shot. But if like a guy comes up to you and is like, he's gonna get mad at me. If he comes, because I
Talk about harassment, right? What about like harassment when it comes from the consumer? Why is that more acceptable? For example, let's say you work in a store, right? Male or female. And there's a guy or a girl just checking on you, telling you like, hey, let's go out. Damn, you look nice, you look fine. You know, I would like to take you X, Y, and Z, right? Why there's no kind of like repercussions for that? It's more acceptable. Like all they do is like, oh, the consumer's always right? And they allow it to happen. I have a crazy story later, but I want to hear your opinion on this.
wait, you can go, Kevin. Sorry.
For the for the safety, I will kick out that consumer. Honestly, you know, like, it depends on like again like, what's the delivery, right? Are they being respectful or are they being disrespectful? If they're being like obnoxious and disrespectful, that consumer would just be kicked out, you know, because then that's the safety hazard on the employees that are there. Um, if they're being respectful and denying, then I would tell the coworker or the worker to possibly go to the break room, wait for the person to be done shopping, right? But like again, I think it's all based on the delivery with the consumer. And it's let's say a coworker is doing that to a consumer now, right? I was there any like is that again delivery again and intent like is the consumer also playing a flirting game with that person and if that's not even happening then that person shouldn't even be making a move, you know, because you're at a professional environment. um you know, like I like love will always appear in certain areas, but always the intent and delivery and respect. Like if that person's having that flirty game with that consumer or with that person that's there, um, then sometimes just let it. And then another time it's like if it's being too much, then shut it down. That person either can't work at the store anymore because that's a risk to sales and to it just becomes liability. Like that person's a liability even for a story on media in a sense. Um, because nobody wants that kind of liability of this of my stores harassing the consumer, so that person will get kicked out. Um, but yeah, it's all based on delivery. Right?
I actually have a question. I love what you were saying because it's like, okay, I love the name of our show, Ethics Guild, right? So is it ethical? I can't wait to hear your opinion on this too. I was talking about this with Kevin. Is it ethical for, like you're saying, the customer versus like employer, right? Is it ethical to play that game of like flirting with a consumer or customer to get ahead, or to like, if you see a gain out of it, like, oh, I can have like a business deal out of this, and I'm gonna like play the game, which can be borderline dipping your toe into the harassment pool. Is that an ethical way to get ahead in business? Big no, right? I know, but I just want to.
It's a tactic that is useful. Like, for example, if you work in the luxury retail industry, like, I did for over 10 years. If you go into, let's say you go to Madison Avenue, what do you find there? You don't find and this is nothing against people that are heavy-setted. You don't find people heavy-setted or that don't have a good appearance, right? You find almost like model types around Madison Avenue, right? And that's the game, is to sell you their product through that appeal, that beauty appeal, right? And what does beauty always use as a and not everyone, but what is used, the tactic is, I can be a little flirtatious to get and sell what I need to sell, because at the end of the day, I have to also survive, right? So it is a tactic. To think about it, like, and I can tell you from a guy's perspective, right? Like, you walk into anywhere and there's like a beautiful woman that is courteous and super down to earth and just chatting. It opens up a different dimension, and you feel like, okay, I'm at that same level talking to somebody that is completely out of my league, right? I don't know about you females, how you feel if like Brad Pitt came to you. It's like, hi, Autumn, I'm here just for you, right? Or somebody you like, right? Like an artist that you're like, oh my God, like saliva running all day, like, but that puts your guards down automatically, right? And unfortunately, a lot of us are visual, right? And we get entertained by that visual, and when we see what we like, our guards go down automatically, and we become more open to suggestions or anything that they want to sell us, right? But beauty sometimes gets you further in a lot of things.
I think that's natural too. Like beauty is always going to be there. It's a natural evolution, as you see, like even within art. Like the most beautiful art is always the ones that go up, right? It's a sale. It is. I think it's definitely is a tactic where they use beauty as a stand front. I mean, that's why you kind of don't see like even on billboards, like all those had to do with image, a beautiful, like a beauty image rather than the natural image. So yeah, beauty's a tactic. It's gonna be there. Is it ethical? Who knows? But it's
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I will say, I think there's a difference between beauty and vanity. So I think I think it's from Dostoevsky. There's a beautiful quote from Dostoevsky
Yes.
that beauty will heal the world. Like when you encounter true beauty and it just like touches your soul, it opens you up, and it's like you encounter goodness and you encounter pureness and innocence, and it just like disarms you in the right way where your heart is able to receive and be received. Whereas I think vanity, on the other end, vanity is where you can get manipulated. Vanity is where you seek yourself. Vanity is very self-centered. And like going back to our whys, right? The ethics part of implementing that in your everyday while you're working is because I'm working with my fellow brother, my fellow sister, my fellow neighbor. And it's almost like, just speaking for myself, like I feel like this obligation to make sure that they feel safe, they feel like they're in a good environment, they feel appreciated. So I think too, like I don't agree with the using, I'll say, vanity to get ahead, because you're using that person as if they're a tool, like they're an object. And money comes and it goes. And I think your integrity will remain with you until the end. And again, true beauty is something that like makes you just open up and blossom, and it will always bring more goodness. And vanity, on the other hand, doesn't. And that's where you'll find people manipulating their looks, manipulating the visual, because they think they can get ahead, they can get what they want. Sorry for my rant, but I just had to.
You're absolutely right, because I can tell you in this retail world, right, in the luxury retail, you can tell that the most successful sellers are not the most beautiful ones. So although they create this, like, for example, you walk into a luxury retailer, right, and it looks like a museum, right? So what kind of people do you need there, right? People that resemble that luxury lifestyle, what you see in the magazine. That's what you want to portray, but not necessarily those people that are so beautiful are the most successful sellers, because no matter how much beauty they have, they're not qualified, or they don't have that killer instinct to be a good businessman and to own your business and sell through. As a matter of fact, the most successful sellers I've seen in these luxury retailers have not been the most beautiful ones. They're just the normal guy that you just dress well. But guess what? They have that eagerness, they got that drive, they are consistent, while the other ones rely on that, that somebody, they create an impact, while the person that's more driven is going to approach, be more sociable, is going to offer more, is going to be like, hey, let me get you a champagne as you wait here. I'll give you my assistant, browse around. Like they service better, because they understand that they don't have the beauty to attract, but what they attract, their attraction is, I'm servicing you the way I want you to feel that this is where you belong. And once you feel that you belong in there, you're going to want to first see what I can offer you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then once you see that, now I'm going to make it that it's something that you need versus what you want. Right? And this is how, there's a tactic about service. It's
Right.
like, make you feel like at home.
That reminds me of there's a book that I read about business where it's like, and it's marketing. Do you want to become a welcome guest or a pesty pest?
I like that.
So with that, it's like beauty will be that store, that front, while the service aspect's like welcome in a sense. So it's like, let's be that welcoming guest, right, and provide for that consumer, for that person that's gonna be there to get them the experience, rather than just saying the experience is me, rather than saying that. So
You just reminded me of something when you said that. It was so vivid in my head. In the last company I worked for, that was one of the biggest problems, right? Is that this company hires diversity, right? So there's no such thing as if you're tall, you're short, if you look different, they'll hire anyone. But the worst part, the good thing about that, there's diversity, but they hire people that, like when I went into different stores, they didn't even care about servicing. They were talking among themselves. It's like now you don't even have, yes, it looks cool that you have diversity, but they have no interest whatsoever in servicing at all. Like you have to go to them. It's like, hey, can you help me? It's like there's no interest to interact with somebody. No interest. It's like at least when I guess in the luxury retail, when you hire beauty, it attracts through beauty. But when you have diversity, what is it that you attract? Right? I can see, like you said, it's a marketing tool to have beauty on your side. It's marketing. It beautifies the place. It's like having an ornament that it's like, oh, wow, that's beautiful, right? And it's a marketing tool. But imagine if you don't hire beauty, but that it doesn't even serve you to market something because they don't even service at all. They rather be speaking to themselves, associate between themselves, don't have any sort of urgency to help another person, which they get paid for. And to me, that creates a cultural impact on the company that is trying to be customer service oriented, right? Because they don't serve no purpose besides just being a body there. And lately, this company, that's all they hire. They hire a body. Just occupy that space, and that's it, you know. But again, what is the purpose of just looking good on diversity, looking good that you are accepting, but you're not hiring people that can run your business and are qualified to do any of these things.
I think diversity can represent like all are welcome here. And I think like so I think Mother Teresa is a very beautiful woman, not in the way you would think, right? But everything that she did, and speaking about service, the service that she did was so beautiful in making people feel seen and received. And, you know, she always talked about being the one, right? So when you enter your workplace and you have that mentality of, well, I'm serving the one. I'm working with Wendell and Kevin today, and I want them to know that I'm fully present and I'm listening to them and make them feel as loved as possible. There's this scene in Cinderella, the live action movie. You guys probably haven't watched it. And the like fairy godmother, she's, you know, dressed as a homeless woman, and she's like asking for some milk or some food. And Cinderella comes to her and she gives her the milk. She had a really hard day. And she's like, thank you so much. And Cinderella's like, oh, that was nothing. And then it always stuck with me, her response. She goes, nothing. A bowl of milk is nothing, but it's the kindness that makes it everything. And I think when we're in workplaces, right, like, I know there's a famous saying, business is business. There's no emotions in it. Like, you just do what you have to do because money's involved. And it's like, yes, money's involved, but when you're raising people with ethics, which is the point of our show, right? Like when you have ethics involved and you go to work and you're giving your all and you're taking everything you learned from school. If you didn't go to school, you're taking everything you learned from home and work experiences, life experiences, sorry, and you're giving 100%. That's what makes you like a full-rounded person. You know, you want to like give great ideas. You want to be 100%. And I think like when someone's not doing their job right, the famous question is, can you fire someone tomorrow if you had to, right? It's like, of course, because if they're not doing their job, then like, and they're not assisting you like in the role that they have to, you have a conversation with them. You bring it to their attention. You let them know like, we value you as our worker, as our family member. And then if they don't change, if you're giving them those like moments to change and they still do not, then you have to like obviously let them go. But I think like beauty service and kindness in the workplace is what is lacking, I think, now. And that is also what leads way to harassment. You know, when you don't value someone anymore and you see them as this means to an end, right? Then it's like, okay, I can just go to work and I can talk to Kevin however I want to today. I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable because I can.
Yeah, that happens sometimes at workplaces too. It's like I think you have to get that service right to them. Hold on, completely lost track of the thought. I'm so sorry, lost track of the thought.
Now you can like I think this is gonna lead up beautifully for you. You got to understand what business you're in, because if you're in the business of creating an experience, it's all about how you make another person feel. Now let me ask you something. How many companies hire an expert in about emotion and behavior? No, right? And so what they do is like, I'm gonna hire this manager that knows how to handle the operation and sales of things, but has no human capital abilities of how to grow that aspect of the business. Right? So you're putting somebody unqualified to run the human capital, which provides an experience. So what you do is this expert, what they do is that they start making them grow in their emotional intelligence, right? But where do you start, right? If you want to take care of somebody, you got to ask the question, how do you take care of yourself? Because if you don't do it, if you haven't done it with yourself, it's going to be hard for you to do it for anyone else, right? So this is the importance of having, like, for example, an industrial psychologist. And I speak this because, I'm in that field, all right? And this is where they start helping that human capital grow individually, right? And the way it works, right, if you have an individual you work with, each individual, you want them to first, little by little, start forming groups, right? Because we're tribal. We evolved through tribes. Once you start seeing them segregated into groups, because everyone's going to pick a group, that is not a team. Okay? That is a group. That means you chose a selected few that you like. Now, this is the hard part about human development, human capital development. How do you transform those tribes, small tribes, into becoming one? Right?
It's very Lord of the Flies.
Exactly. So very Lord of the Flies, right? But this is where you hire that expert. That is not the manager that has been promoted since he was a stock guy to why? Because they do not have the psychological knowledge to do that, right? They don't have the academia to back them or where to start. Like, so to me, it's like, this is where we fall short in terms of like understanding how to bring the experience into your business. You need to hire the experts, and those experts are going to teach those people that have been growing in the business on how to do it, right? And once that person understands the concept, they're able to embark more. But this is where every company is like, yeah, this is great, the culture, the experience. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're putting somebody that knows how to manage things, but they don't know how to lead a human capital through their emotions. They don't understand what it is they have a hard time removing themselves from their shoes to put themselves in the shoes of the people that follow them.
Is that when they try to do like the team building days?
Yes.
And they'll take them out to go play like baseball or something,
Yes.
and then it's like, I feel like it doesn't do anything.
That's just an activity.
Yeah.
So, for example, when you start these groups that form, you want to make them united. They need to have a common purpose, why they need to unite. And sometimes the best tactic is to have a common enemy or a common goal to go for. The common enemy is the person normally that's trying to unite. Yes. Why? Because that person is saying, it's okay, you form groups, but now we have to behave as one. Right? Yeah. Regardless of your differences, regardless of your beliefs, regardless of, we are all an army that needs to fight against whatever purpose.
Right.
And even if that takes, because I'm going to correct those behaviors, I could be the common enemy. Now you're all going to be talking about how obnoxious I am about forming you into becoming one. But guess what? Now, once you start, each one of your groups have that common goal of saying like, oh, talking about me because I'm correcting your behaviors. Now finally you align on something. Now you can become a team because now you have a common purpose.
How do you feel when you're corrected?
Oh, the correction, you have to be fine. You have to be fine with, because you have to look at it at the bigger goal. Because if you stop at just forming these little tribes, that's all you form. In individual groups, and you're not forming a cohesive team that can, destroy any other army, any other objective. So you have to think that the work you're doing, regardless of what's happening, because people are going to make you feel bad about comments they make, or when they see you, they look at you all funny, but you have to have a tough skin. And you know that the purpose, what you're serving, is a bigger purpose. The funny thing is, once you form a team and they learn how to win, because when you start forming these groups, they're becoming successful, but they're not winners. But when you start forming a team that is start knocking down bigger trees, they become winners. They learn how to win. And when they start learning how to win, they start understanding the price they had to pay to win.
Like not liking that guy that brought them together, basically.
Exactly. So then once you become winners, then you will value that leader because they taught you a valuable lesson. What was the lesson? You alone or you in a small group will accomplish very little. In comparison, if you all unite, you can do anything. You can accomplish anything. And that is the lesson. Learning how to win. A good leader through human capital growth teaches you how to win. A winning mentality, right? So what are your thoughts, Kevs?
My thoughts on that, I agree. It's true when you have that common goal, even that common person to bring a team together, right? That reminds me of when I was working. I would just push my ideas a little bit, right? I'll push them to this group over here, right, and to this group over here, and I try to get both groups to come together within that. And then I'll push it a little bit more, and it's good. I think it's good to push ideas, right? Because you have to push ideas. It's not going to get accepted the first time, and it's not going to get accepted the second time. But each time when there's proof behind the idea, it'll get accepted later on, and then they finally realize that, oh, that idea we should implement and stuff like that. But you have to be pushing in the beginning a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Even in photography a little bit. I was pushy with my brother-in-law learning how to play around with the camera, how to use the flash. And then I was a little bit pushy with Autumn too, a little bit with the flash, teaching them how to use the flash, how to play around with the camera. And I was telling them you gotta point it up in the air. And they always used to get annoyed at that with me for a little bit because I'll have to like correct the action, right? If you want a good photo, like the quality stuff, this is the stuff you have to do. And I remember I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I don't have to be too pushy enough, where I think they understand it a little bit more now. And then they had me in their heads already saying, gotta put up the camera, you gotta put up the flash. And they're like, Kevin, yeah, he said.
Traumatized with Kevin's image.
Right, but at the same time, you guys recognize the impact and you guys recognize the quality behind it, and then it becomes second nature. But it has to get big. It's okay to be pushy a little, you know. And I like if you're that person that is that leader that does become that common enemy, right? That's okay.
The army does this very well with the drill sergeants. Like, you know, I'm a war veteran, right? And that's exactly why they do it. Because think about it, you put a bunch of strangers that come from different states, all around the country, different race. They teach you that you are a soldier and you are equal. All right, and your sole purpose is to fight your enemy. Who is your enemy when you first start? The drill sergeant, because he's yelling at you. And I have many stories of drill sergeant that I won't say today, but they're at the beginning you're like, man, they're rude, they're all this, they're yelling at, but they're giving you discipline through the process, right? But they become the common enemy, and then that's how we're talking about hundreds of people unite, and they all fear the same person or the same group of people, which are the drill sergeants. But then as soon as you finish basic training, the drill sergeants are no longer drill sergeants. They are your peer. And they tell you that was basic training. And as soon as you go into your military career, they're just like us talking. And you see that they play that role so well. because they understand that you need to form a group to form a team quickly within a 2-month span.
Can I say one thing on that really fast? Sorry. That reminds me of like even dads. For example, dads with kids. Like the dads have to be the disciplinary ones, the ones that tell them to get the details in. You know, like okay, like for example, with we had to clean. I have my brother and a sister. We had to always clean the kitchen. My dad will come in and like, tell us all the little details, like all the spots that we missed, and he knew that he had to just be disciplinary, whether that he wasn't our friend to say, right, and just to be that figure. Um, and now as we're adults, right, he's like, do you, you know, like you guys are doing you. I'm here if you guys need anything. Like, but now we're at a place where we could be friends, in that sense. And it is true. I think like you have to have that like we don't hate our fathers, you know, like they're not like common, they're not like enemies, but like being disciplined and going through all those things, it's you have to go through that, like for it. So I just wanted to say that with it. It reminds me of fathers too. Like fathers, it's a good thing with the fatherhood, but.
Totally, I agree. Fatherhood is really important, and I think like dads have such an important role in shaping their children, and that voice of correction comes from the man. You know, it comes from the woman too, but I think the dad has a big responsibility in like shaping a child's way of like receiving correction. I do have a question. What does harassment look like in the Army sphere?
Oh my God. Well, I can tell you, drill sergeants will harass you all day. So you sign up for that. You gotta remember, in the military, you give up your rights and you become government property. And because you're government property, you are a weapon. And they have to shape that weapon to be good to survive. So what the drill sergeants are teaching you is to survive, right? Because, and let me tell you one thing, you can go through all the trainings you want, but being at war and being training, it's like completely different, right? There's nothing that resembles war. But what they teach you through the training is how to become adaptable and how to evolve through your environments, right? And that's why they put you in many very difficult situations. They make you vulnerable. They exploit you. They would humiliate you so you can become okay with it. Because now if they break you down to the point where there's nothing more to break, then what is it that the first thing you do is like, well, I have a tough skin now. Nothing breaks me, so now I gotta build up. The consequence of that is that it does create traumas, right? And those traumas, they need to be, I will say, desensitized through therapy. But there is no process. There hasn't been a successful procedure, psychological procedure, to bring somebody slowly but surely into saying, hey, you don't have to be hypertense anymore, right? Because there are no dangers around here, right? And that right there will do a lot of great things for veterans. And you know something, speaking about harassment, is like we were talking about the male role, right?
Yeah.
What I find, which shouldn't be funny, but how often does a guy get harassed by a girl sexually?
I know, and I find it kind of like funny because it's just like.
And how often would a guy go like, oh my God, she's trying to go out with me and she said all these inappropriate things. Like, you know, seriously, like what are your thoughts? I need to hear your version and your version, because I can't say anything. I'm going to start cracking up. But go ahead, Kevin.
I think guys have to, not have to, but I think guys do keep it under wraps more about it because if you tell like guys are more into it, we're more spearheaded with our jokes, you know. So it's like if you tell somebody about like that you're getting harassed by this lady, they'll be like, "What? You're not gonna do blah blah blah. You're gonna go out with blah 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 blah."
Yo, try it on, man. Like, go for it.
Yeah,
Take one for the team.
yeah.
It's like, it's like I never heard a guy going to HR because a girl. It's like never in my career throughout all these years, I never heard one case, So to me, it's a little like surprising.
Exactly, right? It's like how like every show, like the ladies, they do harass guys, it's just I guess there's humiliation when if you do report it. If you're a guy, you report it yourself, like it's like
How would a girl
humiliation.
look at you, right?
Yeah.
Like, yo, this guy, yeah, she liked him and was trying to get with him, and suddenly he,
Right.
like, how would a girl look at that? Like, yeah,
Is he really a man
exactly.
for doing that, right? Like,
Your manhood gets put in.
yeah, right. Your man who gets put down for talking about your own
What
harassment.
about the guys are even worse? What's wrong with you, bro? It's like, you had a chance to hit that. What's wrong? You know how. What are your thoughts about that, Autumn?
You
Like-
guys are so funny. I think like we need to have more compassion for our men, because I think like men are so like trained to not feel or not like acknowledge anything that
Mhm.
let's say someone does make someone feel uncomfortable. Like the examples you guys just gave, there is not a platform for them to be like, oh shit, that actually made me uncomfortable. I will say like harassment in certain situations. So like if a guy is getting hit on by a girl, they're gonna welcome it, right? They like it in the most parts. What about if you have a guy who's married and then you have a woman who's harassing him and like going after him in that way? That's a totally different like scenario. I haven't witnessed a man getting harassed. I will say I've witnessed like maybe like bullying of like, intense like just like joking around so much, or you're just like belittling a guy. But even that, like they joke about it, they laugh it off,
And that's it.
and that's it. Yeah.
Poor guy.
I know.
Like I said,
It's a different, I guess, ballpark, but no means no. It should go for men and women, I think,
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just laughing so bad because it's true what you say. I think guys have. I don't know. I believe that guys have become more quiet about things because most men are taught to suck it up,
Right.
get tough, and keep going in many ways. Like, in harassment situations, in I don't know, like it just make me laugh. I'm sorry. In many situations, like for example, another situation, if you fall,
Yeah.
all right, it's like, don't cry, suck it up, go get up and keep going, right? And I believe that, like you said, it's like a taboo if you do report something like that. As a matter of fact, maybe guys feel flattered that happens, right?
Right.
That somebody takes a like of them and then they're a little harassed, right? Because like I said, like women don't have those.
And I will say though, I think like from women, men don't see it as harassment. But if you have a man who's gay, right?
Oh yeah.
Then it becomes harassment. Then it's like, no, he's harassing me, and then I guess it would change the scenario.
Oh yeah, definitely. It changes the chip, but at the same time, I haven't seen, like, for example, a guy reporting that person that likes the same gender.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have never witnessed. They might let them know on the side, like, hey dude,
Yeah.
I don't swing that way, right? But I never seen a situation where somebody gets fired from like somebody that's gay that likes another man, right? I've never seen that, and I don't think I've seen that in with women that like women. Like I do think, like for example, and I've seen it where women will compliment a woman about how nice those tights look on you. From a woman to a woman that likes that likes a woman, they won't take it the same as like if a guy was telling them that, right?
Right.
They'll look at it differently. But it's I think it's more accepted. It's less accepted,
Mm.
in this situation.
Yeah, like like for example that the legging situation, like that one was like ladies they go to the bathrooms together, you know. The guys we don't go to the bathrooms together.
Holding hands.
Yeah, right. Literally holding hands, literally checking themselves in the mirror, things like that. Like we don't do that types of stuff. Like, but the ladies they do that type of stuff. So I think that's why they accept it more. And then when with the guy that same sex that's trying to hit on him, I don't think it goes reported because it's like we'll
It's
just
a guy code almost, right?
yeah, like we're not gonna be like
I'm not gonna snitch on you, man. Like,
yeah, literally I'm gonna just let you know like don't
Yeah.
hit on me like
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I don't swing that way, dude.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It's nothing, and it's nothing personal, you know. Like that's the best ways. But like, if that happens to the lead, they take it more personally, you know. But I guess I guess it could be based on like for like protectiveness as well. Like maybe when that happens to the lady doesn't feel as protected because she is, of course, she's a little bit more vulnerable to the guy because the guy, of course, has like just body mass,
Yeah.
etc. They are just
More intimidator, right?
yeah more intimidating than if it's just with a lady or with the guy and the guy not too intimidation, but for the lady and the man, like power structure in a sense. Like of course the guy is a little bit more powerful just on build, you know.
That's a good point about intimidation, right? Like it's an excellent point. Like how I don't think there's like men feel too intimidated by a woman's physique specifically, and it's true what you say. Maybe the physique of a man intimidates that they're much bigger and larger. They can hurt them, right? That's a good perspective.
That is a good point.
Very good perspective. Again, guys, we're here made in New Jersey, restaurant 614 Elizabeth Avenue, Elizabeth, New Jersey. You guys got to try these on. These are freaking good. We ordered them. We're about to devour them in a second. But, we're trying to, keep our cool and not eat all of this right now. But come visit us, guys. It's an excellent place to hang out, and it's literally, there's a lot of parking around here, and it's a very nice place to hang out.
Definitely. They have the best empanadas.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm going to touch our last subject, which is going to be religious discrimination and harassment, right? What are your thoughts about, like, how far can you take your practices, your religious practices, into work?
I think they should be accepted into work, like there is because I am also spiritual. I believe in that in the spiritual world, no matter what religion or culture that's in, right? Like you have cultures that need to pray during certain hours, or before they need to do something. Then you have these cultures that need to take some days off, it's all about just respecting the culture. Like in my belief, you're gonna go to your God one day. You're bound to go to your God. So respect your God is gonna come. But other people that don't have that spiritual belief, I think they disrespect that religious practice. They don't look into it. They don't respect traditions behind it.
Like that.
And they just let it all go, like it's not right with what they do in that religious state.
Hmm.
What about you, Lauren?
It's a great question. I haven't really experienced the religious harassment, or thank God, I'm happy about that. I will say, like, religions are respected in the workplace to a degree. Like, I know, like at my mom's job, there's a leeway for like people to practice their religions. If they're Muslim, they're given their time to pray, you know, which I love that, and she tells me that, and she loves that too. I think regarding like days off, you know, like okay, I'm just gonna speak frankly. I think other religions are respected more in the workplace versus Christian religions, and it's almost like it's become a lot of other religions have their days off. They have their days of respect off. Jewish people, Muslim people, and I love that. It's great. We have our Sundays off. We have Christmas. We have our religious days that are important to us, and it's not taken seriously. It's not taken. That's where I've experienced like pushback. If I need a day off for religious observance, it's kind of like not accepted, I want to say, or it's not. It's just very like not taken seriously. So I will say that's the harassment within the religious sphere of like who's taken seriously and who's not, and does anybody speak up for it, you know? And yeah, I gotta think more, but you know.
No, you have an excellent point. You see this you see this a lot because I don't believe people understand how important a belief can be for somebody, like your convictions, right? I'm a Christian myself, right? And to me, it's important to rest on the Sabbath day. And the reason being because you have a connection with God. You are following what God is telling you to do because it's helpful for you and your spirit, your renewal of your body, right? And your mind to be refreshed to go back to work. Because that's the purpose of a Sabbath, is that you rest, that you put your mind and your heart into God and let God heal you through the whole process. And then you are at peace with Him. So you can go at peace to work, right? And for example, a lot of people don't understand that just because they don't have those same convictions, right? In the same way, for example, there's convictions that are celebrated that seems to be favored more because of the popularity it brings into a marketing perspective, right? You know, and that again, I'm happy that Christianity is not a popular thing. Why? Because if I don't want to go too in depth, but even if you read in the Bible, it states that, right? It's not going to be a popular thing because if you want to follow Jesus, you have to suffer.
Yeah.
That's the journey. Carry your cross, be responsible, put the other cheek, love your neighbors as yourself. All those things lead into learning how to be self-sufficient, to love and understand yourself and others, and to live with the neighbor that maybe doesn't like you, but still love that person, right? And to do that, you need to understand how God does it with you. And if you don't follow a lot of these, convictions that God has for you, then it's going to be hard for you to understand what is that self-love that you should have for God, yourself, and others. So I do think that people perhaps need to understand more into why people it's a need, it's not a want. And I think that's where the confusion is. They think you want a day off. No, it's a need. I need this for my spirit and myself. And I do think that people have to dig in or educate themselves a little bit more on how important, the practice of a religion is. And speaking about discrimination, right? Like, I'm a Christian, and in the companies I work, I never work Sundays. But to get those Sundays has been a battle. People have had their opinions. I'm talking about those above me giving me opinions such as, maybe you should work in a store that doesn't work on Sunday, right? And I'm like, well, if you're limiting me because of my religious belief, that is a discrimination.
Yeah,
right in there, your comment right there.
Yeah.
Because the way I think is like, let God deal, because in the scripture it says, leave vengeance to me.
Yeah.
Right? My job is not to judge that person that did that, but I leave that to God. God will know when to judge everyone in their given time, right? So to me, it's like I have to face, absurd things. And the funny thing about it is like they always say it hinders the business.
Mm.
And $5 million later, it never did, right? In the last place I worked, and they were when I went to this place, I was very upfront. I can't leave unless you guarantee that I'm off on Sunday. That's the only thing I'll ask. Other than that, you didn't need to do overnight work. I'll do it, but that is because of my religion. They were okay. Unfortunately, that leader left, and when that leader left, they forgot about my agreement suddenly. So the new person comes in and starts harassing me that I had to work on something and starts scheduling me. All my peers, right, that will work with me, they were like, how can they do this to you when you have changed the face of the business, and now we're winning, and now we're motivated, now we're making money, we're more strategically, we're working better in everything. And they were willing to take all my Sundays in. Think about the people I work for were willing to do something that could easily be resolved by this person. So this person tells me, well, it hinders the business. I'm like, okay, how? Prove it to me. Where's the numbers? So I got the numbers. My sales penetration of me not being here on Sunday has been 40%. How has that hindered the business compared to last year when you had somebody working on Sunday, right? How much shipment do you get on Sunday? None. Do you really need me for a Sunday? No. My job is to train everyone else so they can be valuable as I was there, right? Do you have that? Yes. Again, I go back to why I'm being on Sunday. So you're picking on me because you want to somehow portray power over what I'm convinced gives me peace, right? And it's unfair to fight that. And I had to fight that for a while. I'll be honest with you, I felt very discouraged. I felt very sad that I had to fight for my right of religious choice. And the worst thing is, I reflected right in those moments. I was like, I fought for this country. I was responsible enough to go to war for my country, and I cannot at peace practice my religious belief on a day that I celebrate Sabbath. So that in my head kind of like got me sad, but I never stopped doing what was right, regardless of how I felt. And eventually, once I told that leader, I remember, never forget it, he brought me to a meeting because he wanted to, I guess, segment his decision. And I said to him, look, I understand my constitutional rights. And I got a phone. It's like, because we have another person with us. Since you have a witness, I'm going to have a witness. It's going to be my phone. Are you okay with me recording this? I'm putting recording. My phone has recorded. I'm going to tell you this straight up. Do what you have to do. And be convinced that what you do, you don't repent. I understand my rights, right? And what you're doing is not right. And I said to him, unfortunately, you have pushed me to get an appointment, and I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to sue this company because you're violating my right that I never had. That I had problems in the past, but they eventually worked it out. But you're making me feel so uncomfortable, right? That I can't even be who I am. And once I said that, I can see in his face that he was like all the power, the empowerment he felt went down. Like I think he started to reflect, like, what am I doing? And then I bet money he went to HR. And HR the next day went and was like, oh yeah, we're going to give you a temporary pass. I told her, why are you giving me a temporary pass? Because I've been a Christian since I was at war, 20 plus years. What makes you think that my faith is going to change? Right? So, very uncomfortable situation to be in. And I told him once they gave me the accommodations, right? And accommodation, right? I told him I have no problems with it. I'm gonna be loyal to you no matter what. I'm gonna work the same way I worked before, and this is gonna be a page. Again, it's not my job to judge you for what you've done, but you should be reflecting about what you did. That's your job. That's all. And then after that, he never bothered me about my religion. As a matter of fact, one day he asked me, "Why you think we're being so successful?" And I told him, "You want my honest opinion, my honest criteria, not a business criteria, because of God, and because God is so good, and not only because God is good, but because we honor for someone to celebrate as He wants us to celebrate."
Wow.
Right. And then he stood quiet and he's like, "Yeah, I gotta say I admire the fact that you have that commitment." And I was like, "Well, it is my number one conviction. It's a non-negotiable." As a matter of fact, I was willing that day. I remember when we were having this discussion. I told him I'm willing to leave my job, and I meant it. I was like, if this doesn't resolve, I'd rather lose my job than live another day under this kind of tyranny. So yeah, it was quite an experience. It wasn't a good one.
Oh my goodness. First, I want to say thank you for your service and for everything you've done for this country. Like, we value you, we honor you. You're amazing for that. Second, I just want to say too, you're so brave for having that conversation. I know it's very hard to like declare yourself a Christian in the work environment, or it's easy to be mocked. So I commend you for that too. And I think the soul needs God, and your love for God is a sweet fragrance that you carry, and it just comes off of you. You see things differently. And I will say too, I think when you have an unbeliever that you're working with, it's easy for them to mock you and make fun of you and not give you the day off, because they're like, well, I don't believe in this and I don't have to accommodate you. But you know, the fact that you sat there and you stood by what you believed in, I think it's so brave, because it's hard to deal with. And like you're saying, you're talking about the Bible, like we know the path to Christ and to heaven is marked by suffering. So at least for me, when I endure that in the workplace, I consider it like little white martyrdoms, you know, where you're enduring those piercings where they're making fun of you or just mocking you, or you're the butt of the jokes, and you just endure it because you're like, okay, I know God sees this right now, and like it'll be okay in the end. But it's hard when you're living it. And I think like I was struggling with your question a little bit because I've pushed it so out of my head, because I'm just like, okay, I just have to endure this. But you know, it does happen frequently. I think when anybody sees, like if I'm wearing a cross or if I have my screensaver and it's Jesus, like you become immediately like this target. And you know, and I respect everyone's religions, and I think it makes them such beautiful people because it opens your heart to love. But you know, I wish it was more understood, like, and especially if you're like a good worker and you're implementing like all of your values into their company, it should be considered like, okay, we'll give the Sunday off. But I had Sundays where it was basically like my Monday and I had to be there. But I would take my lunch break and go run to church. So I'm like, I gotta go, it's a Sunday, you know? But it's difficult. And like, they don't bend around us, we bend around them. So it's just very, like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, it's hard, but we endure it. And I just wanna acknowledge, like, you're very brave for doing that.
Well, that bravery comes with a cost, because now that person looks at you like you're an enemy because you confronted them, right? And that's unfortunate, because not only that you fight for what's right for you, right, for what you stand for, now they see you as a target. Like, this guy is conflicted. Why? Because he's defending something that I don't believe in, right? And that leads into retaliation. I'm fortunate, I guess, through my career, I was somebody that, and again, I thank God for this, I was always able to produce a lot of money for these companies. And because of that, they could never, like, for example, I was never late. I was always there. I was always doing things that I wasn't asked. I was always anticipating a need, finding ways to promote, growth in human capital and also sales and operations. So they had literally nothing, and Kevin can attest to this. Like, they had nothing to say that I was. All they had to do was stay quiet, and the reason being because his behavior is great. So how can we, chop him down? And that's why I always said, like, it's important that no matter what happens, you always do what's right. Because if you have wrongdoings and you're fighting for something, they're gonna start from there, right? They're gonna pick something that you don't do to kind of like hurt you. But when you're clean, right? Your record is clean. Where can they hurt you?
Yeah, and just to like piggyback off that too, I think it's because of like our soldiers and the people who have devoted their life to serving this country, where they've protected the right to have our freedom of speech and our freedom of religion. And I think too, there's certain environments where it becomes very hostile to have a different opinion than someone else. And I think it's beautiful that we have different opinions. We get to share. We get to see how Kevin views the world, how Wendell views the world. It's your perspectives that make me want to sit and listen to you guys, because I'm like, wow, that's amazing. You guys have walked some really like amazing shoes, But when you're in an environment where they're like, and I've been in those environments where like, you're condemned for even thinking about being a Christian or anything. It's just, we have that freedom to practice. We have the freedom to speak what we believe, and thank God that we do, because it's not like that everywhere else. And so I like to remind myself of that, because sometimes I feel like I do not talk about my faith at work, or like I've just become so like in the box because I've been like accosted for it, that I'm just like, I'm quiet and I just go about my day. But I'm like, but these are my freedoms, these are my rights, and it's beautiful that I have this. And yeah, so
I fully agree. When I shouldn't even think it should be like a negotiation, right? I mean, when you have your practices, your traditions, your the rituals, right? When you have all of those basically to get closer to God, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. And I think the work has a diluted feel on that case, because they want to be, they think everything should be equal. They think you doing that is an equality, like, because they can't do that. So they think that you are having an inequality to
A
them.
privilege.
Yeah, they're having a privilege from it, and it's not a privilege; it's a need.
It's a choice you made.
Yeah, exactly. You choose that choice to follow, right? To follow that God, right? And you need to do certain stuff in order to follow that God. But they really do think it's a privilege, and that's why they don't want you to have those choices, right? They want you to be stuck to them. It's not a privilege. It's not. It's a must, and even in a whole bunch of, even in the other major religions, they have the practices that they must do, and work has to respect those practices. And if that job isn't respecting it, I would suggest to leave that job, because if they're not going to respect that, what are they going to respect? They're not going to respect God. What are they going to respect? All right, so that's leave that job. They'll stay there just because of it.
But this goes back to like what you were saying earlier, like what kind of business you're in, right? Because if all these companies now pretend to give the human capital experience, the customer service experience, the employee experience culture, right? But you, like I said before, you don't have experts in understanding how to manage and lead the human capital aspect of an experience and a culture, right? Because you have people that are more inclined to a business because that's all they know, right? So I do think that companies disguise these things, but they don't mean it. They publicize it, but they don't do the right thing, or they don't hire the right people to go about these things and teach those that learn how to operate and sell things, teach them how to lead human capital, right? And the experienced business. Because again, they're managers. They're not leaders. Leaders lead people and they create teams. Managers they manage a business and they move things around.
I think maybe that goes into the level of business possibly too. Like when you're at different levels of business, like when you're first starting off, you're at the level of just it's just to stay afloat in a sense. Like sometimes you're already in redlining and you're like, okay, I gotta get out of this red line. I gotta keep going up. So you kind of just do anything to get above that red line. And then when you're at that line, you're just like getting steady, then you keep growing in a sense. And then it's like the level of survival and then the level of managing, and then after the level of managing, I think that's when the next level is that human capital level. I think some companies are just stuck in that management level because they have it good with the money that's already coming in, and they see like a little bit of growth that's coming in. But if they go to like level 5 with the human capital level, that could be so much more growth on top of them, on top of the game.
And that's okay, but the problem is they're pretending that they are based on, I care about you. All right? And so that's the issue. You're marketing this image that you care. Like, I'll give you a good example, right? Remember the unfortunate event that happened to Floyd a few years ago, right? Nobody paid for the Juneteenth. No company paid. I can attest that the company that I work for, nobody paid for the Juneteenth, which celebrates the freedom from slavery, right? Nobody, until it became a popular marketing tool to celebrate what we call diversity, because it was popular. Why didn't they do this before when it wasn't popular? So they use these opportunities to market themselves and pretend to be, united with the people that do suffer for these things, which are completely different. This is why I do believe that, because when you want to move into a certain area, you hire the right people to take you there. But when you don't, and you just create a marketing team for it, right? Then what are you really doing? You're just disguising, but you're not moving towards that. It's where you want to go, right?
I think like some people that hire illusionists rather than magicians. Like
That was a good analogy.
So like they'll create all the perception and perspectives that they're such a big company and think that the magic is there, and not just them creating the illusion of it, rather than when the magician's there, the magician's actually doing it, and that's what creates the magic of the whole storefront. Like the magic is in the results, but the illusion is to cover a certain thing. There's no results behind the illusion. Like I think the illusion, I don't think there's too many results upon it. But the magic, that's it.
What are your final thoughts on this particular topic?
I would say, I feel like people or companies, they want to make their employees feel welcome and like family. And then sometimes when you dig a little deeper, it kind of like Kevin was referencing, it's like a privilege, I think, that they think they're giving to us by giving us, let's say, a Sunday off, for example. But I think,
I mean, that's the illusion right there, for example. You have
Yeah.
to fight for your Sundays. You're not even getting their Sundays off. You have to you have to stand hard by your convictions to even get that Sunday off.
yeah,
Like, why aren't you just accepted now?
yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, it's true. And I think, like, I've been in positions where I feel afraid to kind of, or just nervous, always nervous, or nervous to, like, tell them, hey, like, I would need, like, my Sundays off, and for me, my compromise was going on my lunch break when I worked Sundays, and like they were okay with that. But I think too,
Compromise. I'm sorry, that's the hard part about it too. It's like it's not even compromise, and like when they're trying to get you to do work at a different place that had their that weekends off, like it's not a compromise. You have your beliefs. Like you're sticking by them. And I think like no one should go against those. But it's not a privilege.
yeah, I agree. And I think too, like it's important, let's say in the hiring process, when you're sitting with the interviewer, to tell them like, this is a non-negotiable for me. Would you guys be able to accommodate this if I need my Sundays off? And have that conversation right from the get-go, because I think too, like a lot of perceptions on going on an interview especially is just like, I need this job, like I really need it, I'll do anything just to work. I've been in that position. But then it's like, if you're becoming a whole and you're working for someone, that means a lot, right? That's where all your time's going to. A lot of your own ethics and morals are being poured in, just your work ethic as well. To kind of like have that conversation, like, can you guys help me here? Would you guys be okay if I need to reserve my Sundays for the Lord? And don't be afraid to have that conversation. God will provide. He always does. And it's important, I think, for employer and employee to have that trust. And I think where that trust gets broken is with these empty promises of like what you said, the temporary pass, or just like, yeah, we can do some Sundays, not every Sunday. And there are people, me included, where I've been to the way they need things to go, because again, I need a job. I just need to make money. But those conversations are so important to establish trust, to have good relationships with your employers. It's important. It's hard if you're in the wedding industry. People are getting married on Wednesdays, but the Lord is there. He's marrying people, so it's good. But it's hard. There's certain jobs where it's hard to get around, but have those conversations. Don't be afraid. That's my, yeah.
Well, to conclude with today's topic, right? It's true what you're saying, having those conversations up front. I've been on the other side, and I've seen how other people, when they're looking through candidates, they can't work Sunday. I need people on the weekends, right? And they chop them off the bat without digging in deeper. Why is this person can't work on a Sunday? But and right in there, it's also like, yes, I can understand, like, you're trying to fulfill the business need, but at the same time, isn't that kind of like discriminating against somebody that can't work just 1 day out of 6 days, right? 1 day out of 6 days. Think about that, right? But yeah, I don't know if you have any final thoughts before we close today's date. And also stay tuned, because we are going to interview the owner of the restaurant. So she has an interesting story to tell us. Your final words, Kebs?
Yeah. If someone's likes your hair, it's not harassment. Like it passes a certain boundary, that's always stick up for your harassment. Like say something. Don't procrastinate it. Just get down straight to the gist of it. And if your leaders also, and harassment can be seen in many different ways. It's not just sexual. It's age, religion, etc. And stick by your convictions. You have truth by your side, so always stick with truth, and they're good.
Yeah, I would say harassment can be very isolating, and you can feel like you're alone and like you don't have the voice to speak up. But I want to tell you guys, speak up and take the leap and go to your coworkers or anyone who's around you to confide that you're feeling uncomfortable, and work together to get the situation solved. It will be uncomfortable, but we can't have you being uncomfortable the whole time you're at work. It's not worth it. And you guys are not alone. And it's important to know that you're respected, and you should be respected in the workplace. It's not an off subject, like an out of bounds subject. You're at work, you should be treated with dignity and speak up.
Definitely. My only saying is for those that are watching this, and if you have a story to tell about harassment, you know, leave a comment in the bottom. Let us know if you want us to, you know, have a little segment about your case of harassment. We wouldn't mind just, you know, having that conversation and put it in on the air if you're comfortable, obviously. So that way we can start, I guess, bringing this topic out a little bit more. And, you know, what are the steps you should take in order to, I guess, minimize or hold people accountable to harassment. Hopefully one day we will bring an employment attorney that could explain to us how to go about what, you know, how can you get a case? How do you build it, right? But that will be for another, you know, segment. So, but this has been the Ethics Guild. Again, guys, Made in New Jersey restaurant. You guys got to check this place out. 614 Elizabeth Avenue, Elizabeth, New Jersey. Come in here. You'll be welcome, just like at home. And normally on the Monday through Thursdays, they have like an exceptional lunch menu. So come and visit it, guys. Stay tuned for next episode.
Oh, I just want to add too, we want to thank all of our vets out there who have served our country. You guys are the real superheroes, and we love you guys.
That concludes today's show. Thank you.